What's up, YouTube? We finally got our push rods. Thank goodness. 70 degrees outside. That's phenomenal. So we're gonna go through, we're gonna show you guys a little bit of jesels, I guess how to lash the jesel sportsman shaft style rockers. The first thing you want to do is, obviously take your rocker off so you can get your push rod down in there. You want to use some high pressure style grease on the tip of your push rods and stuff. It says it all. If you have these rockers, it says it all in the instructions. I always recommend reading them, at least glancing at them. Don't just throw those ones away like we do the others. The other thing they want you to do is, when you torque this nut down, let's see here, can we capture this on camera? Yeah, we can get that. So this is your adjuster nut. That thing there, when you spin it, it'll come in and out. They want that high pressure temp grease here, or high pressure grease here. The other thing is they want a little bit of 30 weight motor oil, or just whatever you got, 1040, 530, whatever. But you want some motor oil down here on these threads, so when you tighten this thing, it's not galling nothing up. So if you want to take a step with me, I'm going to get a push rod over here, get the grease and stuff on it. I'm going to throw some oil on this thing, and then we'll bring the camera over here so you can get an in-depth view of the process of lashing these valves. So now I had these push rods, I guess, soaking inside paint thinner. It helps. They put a coating on them, which is real sticky, nasty, and you always want to clean the inside of the push rod, whether you got a little brush, because there could be little metal shavings in there from when they made these and then heat treated them and all that. They do a real good job at cleaning them, but you never know. I spray the inside out with brake clean, and then I spray air through them, and I soak them in paint thinner, and then I just give them a quick wipe down with a lint-free rag. You also want to put that high pressure grease down where the lifter's at too. Make sure you get the push rod down inside the pocket of the lifter real good. We'll go ahead and install our rocker. Well, you probably want to see this, don't you? Do you want to see it? I would. Come on over here. Okay, now we're going to take our two bolts that are meant for these things, and we're just going to put a little bit of Loctite on them. So as of right now, the adjuster nut is backed all the way out. I unthreaded the lock nut. I put oil on it. The push rod's sitting down in the pocket on the lifter. We just ran those in with some Loctite. Now, Jesel wants you to torque these two bolts here to 27 foot-pounds. So we're going to get our trusty torque wrench out here. And we're just going to turn it until you hear a click or a beep or whatever kind of torque wrench you got. Okay. Now that lock nut for the adjuster is going to get torqued to 25, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this thing back to 25. So my research, my experience with talking to different engine builders, and then obviously doing a lot of searching on Google, I have found out that they recommend when you're using a cast iron block with aluminum cylinder heads to set the valve train up 6/1000ths tighter than what your camshaft calls for, your cam manufacturer. Mine are recommended to go 22. I'm going 15. It's close enough. I don't have a 16,000th feeler gauge for some reason. I might if I looked a little harder. Now you want to set this up so it's got some drag on it. You don't want it real tight to where you got to force it in and out. You just want a tiny bit of drag. And since we got to use a torque wrench to torque that adjuster nut, I'm going to make it a little bit looser. So right about there feels pretty good. Now there is a cool company out there that makes one of these tools that's preset to torque these right away, so you can click click, move on, and go down the line. I don't have one of those tools, so I'm using a torque wrench, so the process just takes me a little bit longer. Now you see that loosened up a lot, loosened up too much. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to torque it and see if it tightens up, and if it doesn't tighten up, then I'll do it all over again. Felt like that tightened up. Okay, so that did tighten up a little bit. It's a little looser than what I would like, but we're doing a break-in, so it'll be just fine. Now, like I said before, we're gonna break this most, seat the rings. There's really no break-in procedure for a roller cam, but you got to seat the rings still. So like I said in other videos, we're going to seat the rings on race gas just because the cylinder temps get hotter. So if they're not exactly perfect across the board for your break-in, that's okay. The biggest thing is once we get the motor hot, we run it, get it up to, we'll say 190 degrees, let it sustain 190 for 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. After we shut it back off, and while we're letting it cool down and drain the oil, blah, 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 we're going to rerun the valves anyhow. Which, when I say rerun, I mean we're going to recheck the lash and all of them again before we fire it up for the second process of seating the rings. Uh-oh, somebody's in trouble. Got him. That's how you know it's getting warm in Michigan, the mosquitoes. So we're back. We just put our high pressure grease on the tips of the push rod here. And I'm going to show you this next one here, and then it's typical all the way across the board with all 16 valves on a big block, small block, Ford motor, Chrysler motor. Chrysler motor is going to have the rocker geometry is going to be a little bit different, but adjusting it's pretty much the same. So I'll show you this one. Our high pressure grease is on. I went ahead, I got the rocker off. I got oil on the threads and stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and start assembling this one and lashing this one. So like I said, I already put oil on this. That's ready to go. Set it right on in there, like so. Apply your Loctite to your shaft mount bolts.
Joes are done if you're hungry. Sloppy Joes are done if you're hungry.
Now I will say this in case some of you don't know. Using extensions or anything on your torque wrench, it will alter the torque reading because the extension can twist and so on and so forth. So the best way to use your torque wrench is with whatever socket right on the end of the head. Sometimes you can't prevent it. Sometimes you have to have an extension of some kind on there. I understand. The impact extensions do not have nowhere near as much deflection. So if you have to use an extension and you happen to have an impact extension, it will work best for you. Now for lashing this one's the same process as the other. We're using the same exact number. We just want to get the feeler gauge in there and have a slight amount of drag like that right there. It's not bad. Could be a little bit tighter, but since I have to use that torque wrench to torque these, we're going to call that good. Let's leave the feeler gauge right on in there. See how it feels? Okay, she loosened up quite a bit. We're going to snug that up a little bit more. Okay, that's a little bit tighter than what we had last time. Oh, that's too tight now. Too tight. Now just take your time when you do this. You're not in a hurry. We're not in between rounds right now. We're sitting at home in the garage, drinking wobble pops, whatever you do in your spare time. I don't know what you do. So just take your time. Try to do it right. See, that feels good right there. I like that. Now we'll torque it and check it again. Ooh, that tightened up a little bit. That'll be okay. So, like I said, take your time. Make sure you do it right. You don't want to end up with not enough lash where it's too tight, right? Because what happens if your lash is too tight? Your valves may not close. When the motor is running, your valves might not be closing all the way if it's too tight. It's possible, right? Everything heats up, everything expands, it's possible. And if they're too loose, what's a bad outcome of them being too loose?
Just don't make as much power.
It don't make, yeah, that's a for sure thing. It won't make as much power. But it'll also start beating up the tips of the push rods. It'll beat on the push rod pockets in the rockers, whether you're using shaft mounted rockers or stud mounted rockers, same thing.
It'll rattle and make noise no more.
It'll rattle. A push rod could pop out. It could bend it. I mean, there's a lot of bad things that can happen from the valve lash being too loose. And then there's a lot of things that can happen from the valve lash being too tight. If a valve, now typically when you build your race motor, you're working with, everything's in the thousandths. You already have tight piston to valve clearance and stuff like that because you want to make the most power possible, right? So we'll say you're on the sketchy side already of piston to valve clearance. If it's too tight and you got a valve that's hanging open, the piston could touch it. It's a possibility. So just take your time. Try to do everything right. Don't rush through it. Like I said, nobody wins an award for lashing valves faster than somebody else. So if you're in between rounds at the racetrack, get that shit done, get it down on a track, and get out there and win some rounds. Anyways, short little video for you guys. This is Patent Performance Racing. We're checking out. Make sure you hit the thumbs up, like the videos, comment if you would like, negative or positive, whichever, still goes a long way. And as always, subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. That does the best and most for the channel. And if I'm boring and I ramble and I talk too much, well, if you got a few minutes, just leave your phone on play and leave it on the kitchen counter and go outside and throw the football or something around with the kids, because those minutes add up too. Anyhow, thanks guys. Thanks for coming back. We'll see you next time.